All right, folks, episode 13 of Allergic to Silverware. What a guest we have tonight. Anthony Gorman, I'd say probably, one of the best footballers the county ever produced. Probably best known for a spell up at the Blues. Probably the biggest club in Northern Ireland. I don't know if Cowan at the minute
probably
would agree.
I'll still do it. Well, look, from a place that I'm sitting about it, absolutely not. No, there's only one club in Belfast. That's Glentoran. But I'm sure Anthony will have a few stories that might sway my decision over the next while here. But great to have you on, Anthony.
I'm looking forward to having a chat with you now, lads. I've watched some of them, and you're doing a great job. And it's all about the crack, isn't it? And especially enjoyed your last one with Felix. I thought it was top drawer.
Oh, he's a cracker.
Chief, seeing as he managed at Coleraine and Harps, so we're looking forward to getting him later on in the podcast. But look, honestly, Anthony, great to have you on. Absolute legend. What a career you've had. Played with some unbelievable clubs, and looking forward to getting into it. Cowan, do you wanna kick things off here?
No, I was just going to say, are we going Tony or Anthony? Because it was always Tony in my house. It was always Tony. It was Tony.
It was Anthony down in Burton Port.
Big Dennis calls me Anthony as well. So
no, I just want to kick off. I suppose like having being a young fella at the time and being a massive football fan, like Tony was somebody that I massively looked up to, and I was kind of chatting to Chief about it before, and we were saying like he was somebody that you really idolized as a young lad. I remember mostly yourself playing for Linfield, and it was always a big thing on Saturdays up on the rafters after the hockey matches, where there'd been a few closet Linfield fans in the hockey fraternity up in the fold. We'd always be flicking on final score. Boys would be saying, "I'll get it on there. We see the hockey results," but really it was what happened up in Windsor Park that evening. So I was introduced to that, and seeing you lashing in free kicks 35 yards was a regular occurrence. And then when I'd see you around the town, Letterkenny, and you used to work in McCormick's, and I'd always go into the shop, and you'd always be there, very accommodating to the young lads, and always chatted, and you always had the class trainers because obviously you worked in McCormick's. And I said, that's why I want to be there. I want to be Tony Gorman when I'm older. He works in a sports shop, so he always has class gear, and he's on TV lashing in 35-yard free kicks on a Saturday. What more would you want? So that was my introduction to you. I suppose to any young lad growing up in Donegal, you were one that we did look up to. But I suppose when
there was a lot of admiration for him, Cowan. Sorry, there was a lot of admiration for him, but now there wouldn't be the same affinity for Linfield Football Club in West Donegal that there might be rafters and Rafo.
So that was my house, Chief. Do you want to see what was coming out of the house in Burton Port about that boy heading up to Belfast? Do you want to maybe give us a wee insight to your house?
Is this the same for Harps?
I took the soup, you see. But I think, was it Cowan, Mickey Gibbons kicked everything off for this man, did he?
Well, that's it. Mickey Gibbons is taking credit for discovering you, teaching you a few things, introducing you to the Donegal boys school, the Donegal schoolboy scene set up, and took you on a trip to Mansfield. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, we started off with all playing for Letterkenny Rovers. There was myself and Paul McGovern and Kieran O'Donnell, and remember Stanley, obviously, Keith.
Oh yeah.
So Stanley was very good to us from say 13, 14, where he would involve us with the senior club like Letterkenny Rovers, and at 14 we were playing for the reserves, and you're playing against men, Mark, and yourself, you're going to play teams from West Donegal. You're getting a real education, but
can imagine.
Yeah, but then from that there, obviously we progressed on you went for trials for the Donegal League Youth team, and that was a big thing to get picked to play for your county, like. And Mickey was the manager, and I remember he was helped by Marty Gormley and Padraig Coyle, and Padraig Coyle, he's a big player for us, as like you were talking about you as a boy growing up and looking up to players like myself. But at 14, 15, 16, we were aware of Padraig Coyle. This young lad went from Gweedore over to Blackpool and was a Republic international up to under 21 level. Very unfortunate. Hey?
Top player.
Oh, yeah, and his reputation went before him, but he was unfortunate with injuries, and he just came back, and so he was involved in the setup as well. But they took us over to England on a trip, and we played Mansfield and we played Derby, and the Mansfield, I was playing the Irish youth team at that time as well, and so we'd done really well in the Mansfield game and scored a couple of goals, and that night afterwards, we went to some Irish place in Nottingham afterwards, and I was warned by not that I was drinking anyway, but I was warned by some senior members from the Donegal Youth League. Sure, now don't be letting yourself down tonight. Don't be drinking here. There's Mansfield's coming to chat to you tonight. So while the other boys, they were away having a few shandies, and it was the first time away for a lot of boys. 16, 17 years of age over in a city in England, and I was sat in the corner surrounded by league execs and a couple of lads from Mansfield. So I suppose start off from there. They had a really, really progressive youth coach there at the time, and unfortunately, they were signing players. We played in the league with Nottingham Forest, Leicester, Coventry, Birmingham, Villa, just all teams around the Midlands. Yeah. But I think we finished third in the league, and we actually beat Manchester United in the FA Youth Cup that year. And so it's unheard of, but it was because the coach was selling the vision he had for the football club, and he was producing these booklets for families long before anybody else was done. So when I before I went over, these booklets coming out about players, what you're doing at school, at college, at your training, your digs, and
right.
But unfortunately, he took ill probably very early into it, maybe October, certainly no later than November. He wasn't well mentally. It was just whatever, he just couldn't cope with things, and so we ended up then probably with senior players that weren't playing in the first team, maybe taking our training, and but we still performed well. But unfortunately, the whole thing sort of after Christmas, then players started leaving, and just.
Was there an opportunity for you to get in the first team at any stage when there was players
not
leaving?
Really, Mark, no. Played regular in the reserves, but I suppose Division 3 football at that time was,
tough school.
Very, very few young lads was getting a chance. I remember travelling with a team once. They played an away game at Northampton, and we travelled with a squad. There was a couple of us travelled that day, but I often wonder what might have happened if he had kept well and that, and you don't know how things would have panned out, but it was a good time to be there. We had a good 15, 16 months, and but just unfortunately then the way the whole thing panned out. But it was good memories though. We had a really good time there, and.
Well, you're a Manchester United fan too, aren't you? So scoring at Old Trafford, I think. Did you score in the?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Going to Old Trafford, and it was Ferguson had just taken over the previous November, and they were doing all right, but we knew that there was players like Mark Robbins was playing there, and at Whiteslack was Daniel Graham, Mike Pollard. Do you remember Mike Pollard played in goals for Wigan? I remember he played in the Wigan team, got the League Cup final against United. I don't think he played in the final, but he played the whole way through to the final. But he was their goalkeeper, and the whole place was just, you can imagine as a young boy, Mark, going over to Old Trafford, and you couldn't. And then I couldn't wait. With no mobiles or nothing. And I thought, right, I'm going to have to couldn't wait. We couldn't wait to get back to Mansfield and phone everybody. And
did your dad not come over for the game? No, I suppose he wasn't able to get over now.
No, it was the game was the first week in December. But there was an uncle of it was my uncle Thomas, my mother's brother, his wife Brady. Her uncle lived there, and he was actually at the game. So by the time I got back to phone everybody, they all knew.
He relayed the good news back.
He stole my thunder. So everybody knew at that stage. So like no, it was good. I know it was only a youth game, but it was a great experience, and great memories though.
So you were well equipped then when you came back to play in the League of Ireland. But how did the move to Waterford come about? Because that's a bit of a, obviously you would think.
How it came about? Busty Blake, God rest him and his wife Keeley were out in the Mount Errigal. Waterford were playing Derry City. He stayed in the Mount Errigal. Busty knew the Waterford manager, Peter Thomas. Got chatting. The Waterford were struggling. They needed a midfield player. Busty says, might have somebody for you. So I'm sitting up at the house watching match of the day, Saturday night, and phone rings. Busty, what are you at? Watching match of the day. Can you come out to Mount Errigal? I want you to meet somebody. So out to Mount Errigal, and within 20 minutes I'd agreed to go to Waterford. And it was just as simple as that, Mark.
And Busty never tried to get you into Derry?
I suppose there was. I'm trying to think about Derry.
That was around Derry would have been a really strong side then, weren't it? Was that the time they won the treble?
Yeah, but Jim McLaughlin had actually. I can't remember. I can't really remember, but I know that Jim McLaughlin made an approach to someone about me going into Derry at that time, and like I would have 18 out there. Derry had Felix and Paul Doolan playing in the middle of the park, and that was probably one of the greatest ever League of Ireland teams, not just Derry teams.
Yeah.
Because it was the backbone of that team was the Shamrock Rovers team that did the 4 in a row, like McNeville and Kevin Brady, Paul Doolan, Noel Larkin. Household names in League of Ireland football in the 80s. And the Derry team were like that did the treble, like that speaks for itself. And you might have done the Derry. You look at Paul Haggerty played at Derry at that time and played very little, but obviously learned an awful lot and developed so much as a player. But game time wouldn't have been high on his list at that time, I suppose.
Yeah. And you speak a bit about Busty, and I've read other interviews that you've done, and he's someone that my father speaks very highly of as well. Would he have been somebody that had like a big influence on your career?
Yeah, very much so, Keith. Like the first coach manager that any of us had growing up, like my own father looked after us playing the schoolboys league, and he looked after the district teams and that. But once it started to get to international team or moving to England, that the first thing he would have done, he would have picked up the phone. Busty, can he come down? Can you come up? So there was all because I've been involved with Letterkenny Rovers from 13, 14 years of age. You always had that connection there.
Yeah,
and you had that. It was a direct line. You had a direct line to Busty, and growing up as a young boy, Busty was the manager of Finn Harps for maybe 4 or 5 years, and a lot of people at that time would feel Busty got a raw deal at Finn Harps by getting sacked when he did, because he was probably the first manager that put an emphasis on a local team. Now, that's no disrespect to Patsy McGowan that was before him, but Patsy, there was no Derry City in the league in the early 70s, and so the Finn Harps did the best players from Derry as well.
Yeah.
But Busty had he had yourself, Mark Dennis and Packy were up and playing there, and Conor McLaughlin and
well, Packy Boner said that. Well, Dennis said to me that Packy Boner credits Busty with him getting a move to Celtic because he had actually just signed for Finn Harps and then if Van Harps were looking for a fee, which they would have been entitled to, that could have scuppered the move, and apparently
tore up his contract.
That's right. So Packy Boner always has obviously.
That was what Busty was about. Like, Busty wasn't about. He would take more pleasure in a young boy that came through his hands doing well, and if he played any small part in that, like that was his reward. It wasn't getting 20 or 30,000 from Celtic for Packy. It was the fact that he'd enabled him to go and pursue a dream, and like Packy never looked back from the minute they went to Celtic. Sure. But that was Busty. Like, he was, and your father, he played a lot for Busty, Keith, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did.
With him, like, I actually played with your father as well at Rovers when I was a young player. Davy was a good player, by the way.
Was Davy any good?
You wouldn't remember, but Davy Cowan was a cracking player.
Yeah.
Centre back or centre forward, like a big and strong and physical, and
Cowan never licked it off the floor then, did he? Big and strong.
Big and strong. But Davy was a big lad, like he was.
But David could play. That was that.
David could play.
Are you saying Cowan can't? Are you saying Keith can? Gorman.
You told me before, Mark, Cowan's a great hockey player. So we went to Galway, but it wasn't working out there, Mark. The team was struggling as well, and there was a lot of unrest with Seamus. Seamus came in and tried to change everything, and he obviously had a big character like Paul McGee there, and they were at loggerheads from day one. So an opportunity came up about, I signed for Galway for a month, maybe stayed, I don't know if I stayed 2 months, and then an opportunity to go to Van Harps for the last 4 or 5 games this season, went there, and then that worked out really well, and then signed for 2 years. So Chris Rutherford was the manager. And they were always at that stage, always nearly getting promoted, or nearly, they were always doing well and playing well, but just couldn't get. When it came to getting a result, we could never get a result.
Yeah.
You get results at times when you weren't expected, but when you really needed it, then like it wasn't. It wasn't.
Who else was involved in that side, Anthony?
Sorry, Keith.
Who else was involved in that side that time you were there?
I'm trying to think. The goalkeeper was Sean Ward. Barney Lafley would have been right back. Paddy Slevin from Derry was left back. Jerry Brown, Eddie McGinley were centre backs. George Greer was in that team. John Jared McGettigan. There was 2 lads from Dundalk, Dennis Cunningham and Tom McNulty.
Right.
And then there was Con McLaughlin, obviously.
He's still playing, yeah.
Con was playing. Anthony Kiernan was there.
Right.
You remember Anthony Kiernan?
Yeah.
Well,
what sort of like he was?
Some player.
He came back. Did he come back from Wolves?
He came back from Wolves, but he was a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
He wasn't that big. I'll tell you, we played maybe the following summer, and we played the Derry team. The Derry team, I think, that won the treble. Yeah. And we played down McGinn Park, and that Ulster Tire Cup game that they had. Yeah. And Anthony Kiernan played in midfield against Paul Doonan.
Yeah.
And Kiernan was superb, like.
Yeah.
And Doolers was the best player in the country at that time.
Yeah.
But Kiernan was a phenomenal player. He was just very unfortunate injuries, Keith.
Yeah, pace, touch. What was it like? Vision. What was the set him apart?
He was sharp. He wasn't all that big, but he was. One-man players just sharp and really strong, and he was nasty.
Right.
And he could hit a ball. He had the smallest wee feet you ever seen, but unbelievable power.
Smaller than yours.
He's with a 6.
I always remember Dale's boots fitted you from when he was 5 or 6, I think.
No, but Anthony Kiernan's feet, they must have been a 5.5 or 6 maybe, but
yeah.
But he was strong. He was aggressive. Like he had that, that. But
that the edge.
and I was just so unfortunate that he couldn't play longer,
Yeah.
But
and was Dennis involved that time? Did he not look after you against Bray Wanderers?
Hey?
Did he not look after you one day against Bray Wanderers? Gorman. Tell the story.
We played Bray Wanderers, and it was up in Finn Park, and so we had a corner, and John Ryan, the centre forward, he's back defending the corner. So next thing, I'm lying sparked out in the box. Ryan's he's punched me or elbowed me, but he's caught me a cracker. Dennis seen exactly what happened. So play was going on, and it must have been about 10 minutes later. But the roar went up, and the old fella, he was watching it because he's seen, obviously, he's watching me in the boxes. He's Ryan chinning me. So he's watching Dennis for about the next 10 minutes because he knows what's coming. And Finn Park, like in Finn Harps and Bray, it would have been top of the table game. There would have been a big crowd there. And next thing, the roar got up. And the Bray, Pat Devlin, the Bray bench out in the pitch. John Ryan's lying on the halfway line, busted. totally busted, like. And plays going on, Dennis is running about as if nothing's happened, like. And I was saying to him afterwards, what happened, Dennis? I think he just ran into my elbow.
But that sort of stuff obviously went on the league and got away with it. Like it was bad too, isn't it?
Yeah. Gareth, my brother, he told me a story when he just signed for Galway, and it started off quite well in the league, and so he's enthusiastic, and he's first couple of games in the season, and he set up a couple of goals, and so he got a few write-ups in the paper about great left foot, and so he says they're playing Bray, and the lad Bo McKeever. Have you heard of Bo McKeever?
No.
Tough man. So first couple of minutes of the game, Galway's playing Bray, and Gareth said he can hear this in the box, like, where's Gareth Gorman? Gareth, he knows me. So,
good player.
I'm here. Who are you? So a couple of minutes later, Bo McKeever does a Dennis Boner and Gareth, leans over the top of him. Gareth Gorman shakes his hand. Bo McKeever, welcome to the League of Ireland. Gareth thinking he's this big shot.
Gareth's got a clap because of you.
Hey?
Gareth's got the clap because of you, anyway.
That's brilliant.
But Dennis was brilliant, Mark. Dennis Boner now was
good, tough defender, wasn't he? Apparently, by all accounts,
Aye, but he could play as well.
Could play.
I'm just reading the text from him. He could play. He had a good left foot.
What a player!
What a player!
Told you to head it one day as well. If you want to head it, you'll head it.
I was always done edge of the box, like as far away from heading the ball as possible. Get the edge of the box. So it was up in Sligo, and he says to me this day, he says, "Do the hole." And I'm going, is there anybody else? I'll do the edge. Do the fucking hole. I said, I can't really head it, Dennis. He grabs me and says, if you want to fucking head it, you'll head it. Now do the fucking hole.
Brilliant.
That's a cracker.
Does Keith know Dennis's name for you?
What? No, I don't think he does now.
No, I don't.
You can tell him.
This is brilliant. We're at Mark's wedding, so we're out in the reception area, and Mark makes his big entrance, and he's walking past, and here Dennis going, Marshmallow.
He was sore on me growing up. Like me and his son Paddy. Like Paddy would have played at Harps as well under Healy with the first team, and great player as well. So we went everywhere together. So Dennis would be in the car, and I remember like if we were going to a game, you didn't want Dennis taking you because he angry after the match, and especially me, like and I'd be there, please, hoping it's Aggie, like, that's picking us up, and then it was Dennis. And you knew you had to give a performance. I remember, because we were out, Keith, that time playing in Derry, me and Paddy and Lee Boyle, there was a few of us going out, fair out trek from Burton Port every 2 times a week for training and a match the weekend. But I had a stinker. Remember we played Dungannon Swifts and I wasn't getting on the ball and didn't want to know. That's just disgusted Dennis. I swear to God, the whole hour and a half back in the car, he's just looking at me, and I was in the back seat in the wing mirror. I'll never take you out to Derry again. Like that. I'll never take you out again. And I'm sitting in the back going, like, right, he'll stop now. An hour and a half non-stop. But he was, see, at the time now, looking back, he was brilliant for us.
Yeah.
You know, because he wanted us to do well, and he knew the game, and he played at a good level, and he was tough on us. You know, he was brilliant for me. Love him, like, great.
Where's the marshmallow come out of though?
Because I'm soft.
It's as hard as a marshmallow.
So, sure, there was somebody down there. There was David Alcorn. He's a local councillor, David Alcorn, and he made the mistake of saying to Dennis Boner one night, going on about me as a player, Mark Forker, great footballer. Do you know what? Mark Forker would go through that bar there, and Dennis nearly spat out his pint. He says, Mark Forker would go through that bar for you. No, David, Mark Forker would run around the bar so he couldn't. Gorman, you've obviously talked about some great League of Ireland characters, legends. I suppose there's no one bigger than Dermot Keeley, obviously fearsome player, part of that Shamrock Rovers team, I think, that you mentioned, and Dundalk. Played up the north. Did he play? I think he might have played at Glentoran too. Anyway, he had a great career, but obviously had a lot of success as a manager. You worked under him at Sligo now, apparently. He obviously, well, I remember when he's manager at Shelburne as well, man. He was very focal, to say the least. Any good stories from your time at the showgrounds with Dermot Keeley?
You serious?
Would you just look at me?
Jesus Christ almighty.
Sorry, boys.
He's just asked the question 3 times now and you've ruined it.
Why am I bothering you?
No, if you want to come in here, pull over a
Do you
chair.
want punch in the face?
Pull over a chair.
Sheila, sit down there and tell us the crack, would you?
Come
on, Sheila.
No,
Jesus Christ. Go get your hair done. Come on. Keeley signed me for Sligo from Harps, and they'd done really well at Sligo. He got them promoted to the first Premier League, and then the first year up, I think they finished maybe 4th. And he wanted to change it around a bit in terms of the way that they played. And he signed myself and Tommy Keane and Ray O'Halloran he signed Tommy Keane from Galway, Ray O'Halloran from Limerick, and he signed a lad from Wraith Rovers, Colin Cameron. Do you remember him?
Oh, he played for Hearts.
Played for Hearts.
Oh, yeah.
Played for Wolves. So he came from Wraith Rovers on loan. And but football was quite good. Results weren't that good. But he was fearsome. Like, I remember there was one day I think I played Finn Harps, and rubbish game, half time. He comes in and looking around, looking for Gavin Dykes. He gets Dykes and he stands him up and he goes to punch him. And Dykes ducks out of the way. And he says to Dykes, he says, "You wouldn't let me fucking punch you." He says, "That fucker's out there running around punching you all day and throwing you about like a rag doll. Man up." And he was standing there going, "Jesus Christ, Dermot."
That would have been a regular thing for him then.
Aye, when he lost it, he lost it.
Yeah.
But it could be humorous as well. Like, we played Shelburne one day, and do you remember Greg Costello?
Yeah.
Greg, like, great player, brilliant player. Like, but Greg, lovely hair, nicest hair in the League of Ireland. Like, it was long and flowing, and
I can appreciate that.
So,
yeah.
But so this night we were down in Talca Park, and he's on about the game, and he's about how it's going to be tough. And Shelburne were a really good team at the time, and Haylock and I think Dullers was playing as well. And he was saying, right, middle of park tonight, fucking need to be very careful in there tonight. He says, fucking it's going to be mental in there. He says, be very careful, tread very carefully in there. And you think you're all getting all geared up. And he says, fucking Gorman and Costello in there. He says there'll be hair gel everywhere. He says, watch your eyes. So you're thinking, Jesus Christ.
What was his ethos then? Was he like, you know, his management style? Was he just organisation, combative? What was the story like?
Dermot, Dermot was he was very professional. You know, it might sound that he wasn't, but he had a way of playing, and he got the best players in that he could to play to that system. Like you can see, Dermot was a very successful manager. He's won leagues at Sligo Rovers, Shelburne, Dundalk. You know, he was the first manager to get Harps promoted. Got promoted with, I think he got promoted with Athlone as well, maybe, and Sligo Rovers. So like he's
won a league with Dublin City as well. I know they went.
That's right, he did. That's right.
Yeah.
So he's been successful wherever he's been, and as a player and a manager. But he was sort of one of the old school managers, sort of moving into the new way of thinking, where you know, he was quite forward thinking in terms of diet and in terms of preparation and that. But he still had his old school values, where it was about hard work and scrapping and battling, and like things like that don't change in football, but Dermot certainly had put a big emphasis on it.
Yeah. That was the message.
Was it a direct?
He was driving in on a Friday night.
I think his reputation as a player probably you know, didn't give him the credit that he really deserved as a manager.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy going to Sligo Rovers after Jim McLaughlin's been there and won the league.
Yeah.
You know, and I think he was player manager when he won that league at Sligo Rovers. So you know, he was a brave manager. You know, he wasn't afraid to make decisions, and you know, the thing about him as well, if things weren't going well, like he knew when to get out of a club, whether it was a player or a manager. He knew when the time was right to go. He was never one of them lads that hung on. He showed that at Harps, like when he took over, got promoted. I don't know if he left before the season started or maybe on the eve of the season starting, but he just knew it wasn't right, and he knew to get out. But then he sold me to Portadown, so he knew when to get rid of me as well. I'd signed for Sligo for 2 years, but after the first year, we played Portadown a friendly up in the showgrounds one Friday night, and then on the Saturday we played Peterborough, and at half time we were just going out for the second half in the Peterborough game, and Keeley says, "You sit there, stay where you are." And I thought, what have I done? Like, and so the boys went out, and he told somebody else to go on, and he says, "We've had a bid from Portadown for you," and he said, "We can't turn it down." It was £15,000, I think it was. He says, "You know, we'll get you." He knew Ronnie. He played for Ronnie at Glentoran. He said, "We'll get you a good deal." He says, "If you're interested in going." And I was happy at Sligo because, you know, it was handy up. It was up the road, wasn't that far, and so anyway, he says, "We'll go and chat to him." Sure. So I spoke to Ronnie, and I just thought that it was too good an opportunity to turn down. Like they'd qualified for Europe, and they were always going to be challenging for the league. But Portadown, because Ronnie had a great ability to sign good players, be it Irish players or Scottish or English. It didn't matter to him. So I decided to go to Portadown. Probably the best thing I ever did, Mark, was going from League of Ireland to Irish League. My second year at Portadown was where it really sort of took off, and we led the league for a long part of the season. I scored 9-10 league goals that year, and scored a lot of goals that were like 1-0 goals, you know, and I just felt at that time I was starting to really impose myself as a player and grow. I had good players around me, like Paul Doolan playing beside me, and Like if you don't learn as a player from somebody like Paul Doolan, you know, and I think that was one of the things that I was very lucky from a young age, where I always seemed to have good experienced players around me. So that was, you know, Portadown was really good from that point of view. But when the contract was up then, and Ronnie, he wouldn't give me what I was looking for, what I felt it was worth. And Felix came in and took me to Coleraine, and that was that.
Disappointed you never got what you wanted at Portadown, seeing as you'd done quite well? Did that leave a bit of a bitter taste in your mouth, or was it?
It did. It did, because I definitely got 2 player of the seasons that year, and I knew myself. I'd done well, and we lost the league on the last day. It was the year that we probably too young to remember, but we went to the last game. There was Portadown and Glenavon had, I think it was 62 points each.
And they drew, was it, Annie?
We played Glenavon. Linfield played Glentoran, and Linfield were on 61 points. And Portadown and Glenavon drew 2 each. So finished in 63. Linfield beat Glentoran 2-0. And it was...
That's devastating stuff.
Oh my God. We lost.
What way did the game go? Like, were you 2-1 up, or what?
With 3 games to go, our last 3 games, we had Ballymena away, we had Linfield at home, and we had Glenavon away. We went to Ballymena, and we were 1-0 up. And I gave away a free kick out sort of right side of our box. And they scored from the free kick. But I think it was Barry McCready scored a header, and Ronnie slaughtered me after the game. He tore strips me. And the 3 games previous to that, we beat Glentoran 3-1. I scored in that. We beat Coleraine 1-0. I scored in that, and we beat was it Ballyclare 3-0, and I scored in the 3 previous games. And he blamed me for giving away the free kick. I'm sitting in the dressing room in tears. And then the following week we played Linfield. So our last 3 games we picked up 2 points, and we lost the league by a point. Linfield beat us 2-0. He left me out of the Linfield game. He took back. Tony Shepherd, he had been injured all season. You remember Tony Shepherd from Celtic?
Yeah.
So he had signed at the start of the season, done his Achilles, and he came back. He took him back into the Linfield game. And then the following week we played Glenavon, and all we have to do is won the league. And he left Doolers out and brought me back in and kept in Tony Shepherd. And Glenavon were beating us 2-0, and they had a couple of chances to go 3-4 up, and they didn't. We came back to 2 each. And in the last minute, Robert Casey went clean through for us, and he had Trevor Smith square from for a tap in, and we're gonna win the league, and the ball's bouncing, and Robert's running through, and the keeper comes out and he tries to dink the keeper, and all he has to do is square it to Trevor Smith tap in. You've won the league, and it goes.
Did Ronnie slaughter him after?
No, it was like a wake mark. There wasn't a word spoken. Place packed, and you're watching this ball bouncing and bouncing, and you think it's going in, and it goes past the post, and you see Trevor Smith falling to his knees, and because he's there for tap. Trevor Smith had scored over 30 goals that year.
Yeah,
and but then that summer, then he didn't give me what I wanted, and then Felix came in, and that was probably the second best move I ever made. Do you know what, Mark? He tried to sign me back about 2 months later, Ronnie.
that was a short conversation, I'd say.
No, like we didn't fall out.
Yeah.
We just, at the time, he said they needed money, and the only 2 players that he could sell was me and Trevor Smith, which neither of the two of us believed.
Yeah.
You know, but we played. So I'd signed for Coleraine in August, and we played Portadown in October, and then the car park after the game walking out, he asked me to come back to Portadown. I was lucky. I think I got Felix when he was managing, and he was at his pomp there. If he had stayed at Coleraine, he would have won the league, no doubt about it. He had good players.
Blame Jim Platt for losing you the league or something. Did you lose the league again?
That was previous. That was when he played.
You weren't there.
No, that was in the mid-80s. Now, Coleraine at that time, Mark, Coleraine supporters will tell you, Linfield, I think, won 6 leagues in a row in the 80s. And I think Coleraine were probably runners-up 3 times. And there was one season where I think, with 5 games to go, I think Coleraine needed 6 points. And they got 1 point out of the last 5 games. They didn't have the experience or the battle to go and win the league, and but I think Felix was. I mean, the stories you hear stories. Some of them could be true. Some of them could be slightly exaggerated. I mean, there's just this is actually a true story, where there's a cup game up at the showgrounds one night. Linfield's 4-1 up. Felix is on the bench, come back from injury, comes on a sub. What happens? They won 5-4.
How many did you get?
Probably only 3, but I'm sure he set up the other one. But seriously, that's, you know, they loved him at Coleraine, and if he had stayed managing at Coleraine, we would have won the league, no doubt about it. But anyway, Felix goes to Derry, and Kenny Shields takes over at Coleraine. So Felix is constantly in the press about me and Eamon and Beckett. So Kenny then, he comes back and says he tries to, you know, get inside Felix's head, and he went in and he looked for permission to speak to Liam Coyle and Peter Hutton, the 2 big players at Derry City at the time. So he went to Derry City trying to speak to these players, thinking he'd unsettle them, and because he's trying, Felix is obviously trying to unsettle us.
Yeah.
So they used to do in the news, the sport on the Friday evening, where they'd preview the weekend's football, and they'd have a guest in live in the studio. So Felix was in live in the studio, in the BBC studio in Derry. Felix is in the studio, and he's asked about, you know, he's asked about Coleraine making an approach to talk to Peter Hutton and Liam Coyle, you know, and what's your thoughts on it? And he says, yes, there's been, Kenny Shields has made an approach to the club to talk to my players. He says, I have given permission. That's fine. I have no problem with that. He says, the difference is that my players don't want to play for him, but his players do want to play for me. So this is live in the news on Friday. And
He used to up there with Kenny Shields, hey?
Hey.
He that looks terrible then, like, because there could have been an element of truth in it to a certain degree, was there? Or, like, what was Kenny Shields?
Kenny was a good lad. Kenny was football daft, you know. Yeah. But at that stage, Kenny wouldn't have the experience or the arrogance that Felix had. And, like, if you're taking Felix on verbally like that or challenging, you know, there's only going to be one winner. Mm-hmm. And but that was Felix. It was an unbelievable response live on TV. You know, you couldn't believe it. Like, you couldn't make it up.
Trevor Anderson signed you. It was a fee. 35,000.
35.
35,000. Yeah. Big money. Big money.
They wanted. And the thing was that if they could have taken 50 the year before from Wraith Rovers. You know, if they wanted the money, like.
Yeah.
You know, but
you're disappointed before we move on to the Linfield, like, not getting an opportunity to go to Scotland to play for Wraith Rovers, like that put you in a whole different shop window.
Yeah,
like.
I was really disappointed because I went over probably. Do you remember Wraith Rovers played Celtic in the League Cup final?
They beat them on penalties.
Beat them on penalties. So it was about 3 weeks before that. So I'd gone over 3 weeks before the cup final. So they're all preparing for the cup final. But they had, when the week I went over, they had about 13 fit players. So they didn't have a big squad. They were in the first division. And Jimmy Nicholl says, like, if you sign, you're going to be in the squad for the cup final. You know, whatever they had. I think it maybe allowed 5 subs, Mark. I think so. For that. And so I'm thinking, so I'm going over here. I'm going to be on the bench. The final was at Ibrox. I thought, this is unbelievable. I'm going to go over and sit on the bench at Ibrox in a League Cup final, and Wraith Rovers won it. And then the whole thing fell. I'll tell you, I was actually, we'd agreed to go, and I was going over on the Monday, and it was actually Felix was taking me over. We were driving over because he wouldn't fly. And then he phoned me on the Sunday evening, and he said, well, everything was done. I was going on the Monday, and he says, have you your bags packed? This is, I have. And I'm thinking he's going to say, I'll pick you up. But he says, well, you can unpack them. He says, deal's off.
Oh, jeez.
I said, you're joking me? He said, no. He says, they're looking for more. Coleraine wanted more money. They wanted.
It's quite a harsh way to put that, isn't it? You're
back,
all excited. Sorry, deal's off.
Yeah, you can unpack it. That's basically what happened. That's basically the way it happened.
Well, was it not hard for you then to play for Coleraine? And I know it's like they're a football club and they're looking after the best interests of themselves and they feel that they're entitled to more money. But is it not hard for you? Obviously, you did park it, but to park that anger that they've blocked a move for you to go play for Wraith Rovers, be involved in the major cup final. Like, where's your head at there?
I couldn't see that it wasn't going to happen. You know, I was convinced that it was going to happen. And Felix from day one says, just refuse to play. Tell him you're not playing. He was a manager. He says, tell me you want to go and you're not. I said, I can't do that. I can't. Because Coleraine, the people at the football club were genuine people. Like, they were really, really good. But he advised me. He says, just say you're not going to play until you can sit in a stand. You don't care. You want to go. And I thought, I can't do that.
That's quite a brave stance for him to take, considering he's the manager of the club. And I know that goes back to just, I suppose, only just there what Felix maybe said to us, where he's seen the way some football clubs have been run or were being run, you know, for the interest, or where some managers were just trying to, you know, kind of better their own CVs.
Yeah.
You know, and he just totally backs that up, where he's looking after you, he's looking after Tony Gorman, the player, and, you know, giving you that advice, which could have been totally detrimental to his own career as well, never mind yours.
Yeah. Well, you're right there, Keith. I think he was, because of now it was only a short relationship really, from August, say, to October, November, but he built up a good enough respect for the players that we're all, myself, Naaman Doherty, and Johnny McGaver from New Buildings. Like, we were traveling together, and he had a bit of. It wasn't just a manager-player relationship. It was like
a father figure, sort of.
It was, yeah. It was one of them where he had he was looking after your rights and, you know, going back to the point where, you know, his team talks weren't solely about football, Keith.
Yeah.
You know, going back, it was about life. It was a life opportunity for me that, you know, that he thought, you know, I would have benefited from. Yeah. And one that I wanted to pursue. And but he advised me, he says, just say you're not playing till they let you go. And but I couldn't do that. Yeah. You know, it wasn't
fit into the way you were wired.
Hey?
It didn't really fit into the way you were wired. They're like, you know,
and going back to, I suppose, like, can you imagine like your father that playing for Busty and saying, no, I'm not playing until you let me go, or it just didn't sit right with me.
Yeah,
you get a bad reputation as well too. Say if you did do that, that can
Exactly,
maybe
Mark.
you around for the rest of your career. That obviously
Exactly.
Gorman's trouble because he downed tools at Coleraine and that. So there's all different elements, isn't there?
Yeah, I couldn't have done it. Like, and as I said to you before, growing up and you're playing, and say the likes of Boner playing at Sligo or Van Harps, and the reputation and the respect that they had in the league, and it was your ambition to have that respect and that reputation, and to down tools, just what wasn't, and it didn't sit right for me, and saying that, I probably would have benefited from it, but
we know what happened after that. You went to Linfield, and what an unbelievable time up there.
Well, I was lucky as well that Trevor was trying to rebuild the club, and he'd signed just before the season before that. He signed Fenlon, and he signed Desi Gorman. He signed a lad called Martin Bailey. I don't know. You probably don't remember Martin Bailey. He was a really talented midfield player from Dublin as well. Martin Bailey.
Desi's no relation to you.
Hey.
Desi's no relation to you, is he? Desi Gorman.
The old hawk. No, a good lad though. Desi Gorman, really good lad. But no relation. But Trevor, he sort of broke with tradition, and he signed the. In his eyes, we weren't Catholics, we were Linfield players, which was a big selling point. Obviously, listen, religion was a big factor. It still is a big factor, but at the end of the day, you sign for Linfield, you're a Linfield player. It doesn't matter where you're from, what you are, what colour, you're a Linfield player, and that's the way it was sold, and that's the way that the Linfield supporters look on things as well. It's not, as I said, you don't get me wrong, religion is still very important there. But if you're prepared to go and play for Linfield, go and play for Glentoran, give 100%, that's all's important. And it's a credit to Trevor Anderson for being brave enough at that time, because he signed Martin Bailey and Desi probably about 93, 94 maybe, and big decision, because there was, at the time, was
it not well received at the time by supporters?
Not at the time, no, not at the time.
And were you apprehensive, Anthony, about moving? Obviously, you've already said Linfield, and they are one of the biggest clubs in Ireland, huge opportunity. But are you apprehensive in the back of your mind, thinking this is a different ball game now, sort of, in many ways?
I think the fact that it was removed from, and I wasn't living in Belfast, I think it made it. If I'd have been living in Belfast, I don't think I could have went at that time. It's different now because the boys are crossing over quite regular now, and but at that time, 1994, 95, 96, you had, the Troubles were still, there was shooting and bombings everywhere, and I had been travelling up through Northern Ireland Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and fairly regular. You were pulled in at checkpoints, and your car was searched. They were going through your bag, and I remember we always had a sign of form to say that they left the car as they found it, that there was no damage done to it, that everything was put back the way it was, and
you would have had that experience too, Anthony, with Portadown and Coleraine and that.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have been nothing new to you.
Exactly, Keith.
Yeah.
And I suppose you're naive as well. You're going up to play football, and you're traveling up a couple of hours, playing a game, traveling back.
Yeah.
Just watching on the news, and this happened here, there, but it was, you didn't see yourself as being in that situation. Like it was a bit naive. Like if it was now, and you'd be with a bit more sense and a bit more experience, you'd probably be a bit more apprehensive. But
Yeah. So you had your reservations, I'm sure, once the move came around. Was there anybody you spoke to, maybe from around here, give you a bit of advice, or maybe sort of thought, well, you know what, just go and play your football and the rest will...
I had no reservations whatsoever, Keith.
No?
I did. I spoke to Busty, and he said, you have to go, you have to sign. And I said, well, I was signing anyway, Busty. I was just seeing what you thought, like. But I mean, mind made up. The minute they came in, and then I knew that. The history of the club, the traditions, that's important to me. The fact that whether they were Protestant, Catholic, whatever, the fact that they had. I mean, you go to a Linfield game on a Saturday, you see the grandfather, the father, and the son. You see generations, and Glentoran's the same.
Yeah, 100%.
You see generations of families going to support their football team, and that, to me, that's proper football. It's it's what football should be. It's about family. It's about passion. It's about support. Keith, it's about, whether people might like it, it's about hatred. Yeah. You have to, as a football supporter, you hate your rivals. Yeah. I'm a Man United supporter. I hate Liverpool, but for real rivalry, you need that, and that's what Linfield Glentoran offer. Yeah. And it's a passion, and it's, people talk about football being in their DNA. Yeah. Football and communities like that, it's in their DNA. Yeah. And they're special places to be. Whether it's Linfield Glentoran, Shamrock Rovers, clubs like that, where it's really important. The first year I was there, we didn't do well at all. We had a lot of good games, and we won. What did we won? We won the Gold Cup the first year I was there. The league form was very, very hit and miss. A lot of draws. And then in January, there was, I can't remember exactly what was behind it all, but there was something in the press that he just had enough of, and Trevor resigned in January. David Jeffrey was Trevor's assistant. David took over. Yeah. And then it took David probably, it was the following, so that was about January 97, and then probably January 98, they signed Glenn Ferguson. Yeah. And that was the missing piece, really. Right. You just had that. You had that focal point. You had that presence. You had that character. Like I always say to people say the best player you played with, without a shadow of a doubt, Glenn Ferguson. Aye. Because he could have played centre back, and he would have been your best player. He could have played in the middle of the park, he'd be your best player. He was our best centre forward, but play him anywhere, and he's going to be. He had that. Was it a mentality thing, Tony, or was it he had all the tools required? Like it was everything, Keith. He could play. Yeah. He had a brilliant mentality. He was brilliant in the dressing room.
Where did you sign him from, Gorman?
Glenavon.
Oh, he was at Glenavon, right?
£55,000.
What age was he at this stage?
He was 29.
So because he played in Linfield for years after that, so he had been about the league for a long time, and this was like.
He started off at Harps, right? He went to Glenavon. No, Glenn had an opportunity to see the time I was going to Wraith Rovers. He was over the week before me, and he couldn't agree personal terms. And then I think it was might have been just shortly after that. Then he went to Rapid Vienna on trial, and he played a game against Bayern Munich, and he scored. Unbelievable! Like
Yeah.
And they'd done a deal. This is true. They'd done a deal with Glenavon for, I think it was about £150,000. And he was over there. You know the way they do. They have the winter break in the continent.
Yeah.
So they were in the winter break, Rapid Vienna, and they played this friendly against Bayern Munich. Spike scored, and he was over there, and he was getting a good deal. I think it was £150,000, and he thought to himself, why would I come over here? A wife, he had a couple of kids, don't speak the language. Be taking them over, be living in an apartment or a house. They don't know nobody. So out of pure family reasons, he resisted that temptation, and a massive call for him to make. Like,
just see there, Anthony, before we move on to get too deep into the Linfield thing, you said at the start there, when you got there, it didn't go that well for you as a team. And then we spoke as well as about you gone up as a lad from the south and a Catholic, whatever. Was there ever any, did you feel that you were maybe given a bit more, say, not abuse, but you maybe not blamed either, I suppose is the word, but you're basically saying that they would have given you a bit more stick than they give the local lads because...
You know what, Keith? I found the total opposite.
Yeah, it's funny you say that's. Go ahead. Yeah.
Total opposite. I went up, and the first 6 games I played there, I scored 5 goals. I got off to a great start. Very lucky.
Yeah.
Very lucky. And I don't know why, but I always felt that they were always supporting me and always, like, I could have had a bad game, or they let you know you had a bad game, but they appreciated that. They appreciated that whether we're playing bad or not. Like I always say, Forks, especially the midfield players, like if you're playing a bad game, the worst you should be doing is stopping your opponent playing.
Yeah.
And I always felt that no matter how things were,
100%, like.
Yeah, you're giving 100%. And I think they appreciated that. And there was never, and local boys, I would have got away with more than probably the local boys.
Yeah.
Just I feel that, like.
It probably helped though when you were scoring free kicks from 40 yards out and putting them on the top end. Probably buys you a bit of credit, like.
It does, but that's what I'm saying. The first 6 games, you get 5 goals.
Yeah.
And you couldn't have bought a better start than that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And it did,
Barry Malloy actually is kind of interesting. Barry Malloy mentioned in the podcast too, Cowan, to us about, the day when he's a local lad at Derry, they would get the stick. The local Derry lads.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
They get the stick, whereas maybe the other lads that aren't from Derry get away with it. So probably you benefited where, the Linfield.
That's what I was saying. Like, the fact that I was living and traveling up, living at home and traveling up and down the road, like I was removed from it. So I wasn't in the thick of it. I wasn't subjected to the intensity that the local boys were 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And at that time, I suppose.
As a player, that too, maybe.
It did, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because you're removed from the goldfish bowl that is Linfield Glentoran. And it is intense. And but as I said, I just feel that I was lucky, Mark, in that respect, that I got a few goals early on and continued to chip in. We were getting good performances, but when we needed a result, we couldn't get it.
Yeah.
I think that first year we had 2 games in hand, and both games were against Ards, and we had an opportunity to close the gap and put ourselves right in contention. And in both games we drew 0 each, like horrible, rubbish performances. Yeah, and didn't deserve nothing.
But like obviously you had an unbelievable spell up there at Linfield. Like you won league championships, and like you're still highly revered up there by the supporters, which is an unbelievable legacy to leave behind at such a big club, which is great to you. But would I be right in saying was it premature the way you left? Like, did you feel, because I'm looking at you, or looking at doing a bit of research, you're 31, you've had a lot of success. Surely, you know, how did that transpire? Like,
it was, we won back-to-back leagues, and then the following season with a poor start, and it changed the formation early on that season. We went to play like a 3-4-3. It didn't work out. We reverted back to basically played 4-4-2 most of the time. So, but with a poor start, and so we didn't win the league. We won the Irish Cup, and David Jeffrey never won the Irish Cup before, either as a player or a manager. So it was a big thing, and the Irish Cup final. So, and I got man of the match in the cup final. Done really well. My contract was up, and I didn't want to go anywhere. And then when I came back after the cup final, I went away to England with an Ireland team. We played in a 4 Nations tournament: England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales. And so I went away on the Sunday. Final was Saturday. Went away on the Sunday. Came back the following Sunday and went to Belfast on Monday and met David. And he basically said, "Listen, the budget's been torn to pieces. We didn't win the league. So much wiped off his budget, but to cut costs, this is what we can offer you." And I thought, I couldn't do it. I was playing full time, and it didn't make good sense. Like, to, you know, as much and all, and they were trying to.
Were you raging?
I was disappointed, Mark. I understood totally where he was coming from. They tried to incorporate a testimonial into the 2-year contract. I would only been there which would have brought me up to 8 years, but because something to do with a tax thing, that if you're there 10 years, you can get a testimonial tax free. It would have been a big gamble. You could have been left with a big tax bill.
Yeah,
would have been worth your while. And but the whole time that this was going on, Derry City had come in over that summer anyway, and because there'd been rumours that the budget was going to be cut, but I didn't think it would have been cut by that much. But I had the sort of, you know, the security blanket of a move to Derry City, and then because I hadn't had that much about that I wasn't going to leave. They knew that I didn't want to leave Linfield, and because it went on that long, then that Derry City just pulled out.
Do you think Jeffrey was surprised that you actually didn't take it then, or do you think he could have?
I don't think he was.
No?
I don't think he was. No. I think he knew that. I think he knew going into the meeting with me that I wasn't going to accept it, and I think he felt that I'd my mind made up that I was going to Derry City, which couldn't have been further from the truth. I was quite surprised that it went the way it was, and I was within.
Did he sign someone to replace you? Did he have something lined up? I mean,
he's
an unbelievable manager, like, so I don't think he would have.
He signed Lee Feeney. Do you remember Lee Feeney?
He was at Rangers.
He was at Rangers, yeah. Lee left Linfield and went to Rangers for 3 years, and then he came back and signed for Linfield that summer.
Right.
And I think he thought that, you know, Lee would have pacified the fans and the fact that I was going, but he was coming in. But Lee was a superb player, one of the most naturally gifted players you've ever seen. But the second time around, it didn't work for him. I don't know why. I don't know what the reasons were, but it was just. And they had a terrible season. The year I left, they had a terrible season. And I went to Coleraine with Marty Cowan, and Marty Cowan was brilliant. I mean, you talk about characters in football. Marty Cowan was unbelievable.
Right.
Jeez, he was priceless. You
He won a
thought
league at Cliftonville, didn't he?
he won the league with Cliftonville. But I think Jerry Flynn, a good friend of mine, played with Cliftonville. Jerry said it was unbelievable. You know, they used to train in the car park. It was so relaxed. They trained in the car park and they used wheelie bins as goals. And actually, Jerry, that can't be true. He says, I'm telling you, he says, corner was brilliant. Out in the car park, street lights. You know, this is the kind of stuff just for morale.
Character building stuff, was it?
Basically, aye. But Marty was brilliant. Like the first, I signed for him and didn't know what to expect. And the first meeting we had, it was before the first league game against 11. I had signed on a Thursday train, first league game Saturday. So Marty comes in, so he's got through the whole team. And Davy O'Hara, Davy's the goalkeeper. Davy's a bit chunky. Yeah, old Davy, yeah. Old goalkeeper there, you know, the way in the summer said you're going to lose a few pounds, Davy. Looks like you put on a few, you know. And slaughtered everyone. Stephen Beattie, Trigger signed the year before from Linfield. Yeah, Trigger disappointed with you last season. You know, signed you from the Blues, big signing. Yeah, Marty, yeah. I'll get you 10 goals a season. Trigger, he scored 3 and 2 of them was fucking penalties. He slaughtered it. I'm thinking, what have I signed for you?
But has people are the lads, you know, are you like kind of buzzing off that, or is it like, oh shit, he's going for me?
Keith, I'm not joking. You're going out to the pitch, like it would have been real serious, and then it would have been something hilarious.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
One of the funniest stories was, so signed for done a full season at Coleraine. We won the Irish Cup. Jumping forward here, but Linfield had my first year at Coleraine. Linfield had a terrible season. So that summer, they invested quite heavily to sign. You remember Kenny Irons played for Tranmere?
Yeah.
And another Sherlock. I can't remember his name. But Kenny Irons came into the middle of the park, and he was about 35, but he had a great career in England. Played in remember, good Tranmere team got the League Cup final. Remember Aldridge
was the manager.
Aldridge the manager.
The long throw.
Yeah.
Chandler.
Was it Dave Chandler?
But
Kenny, so we're playing Linfield on New Year's Day, and Marty won. They have a game played more than us. Sorry, we have a game played more than them. But if we won on New Year's Day, we can go top of the league. Unbelievable. Like, we haven't been top of the league in ages. So we go in and we're all, you know, New Year's Day, we're a big crowd, we're all really hyped up, and Marty's going through the team talk, and he's going through the Linfield team. He goes, yeah, old Winky at the back, the old Badger, like old grey hair, he's too old, he's done, yeah. Spike up front, finished, you know, fat lad, he's got fat, he can't run.
Yeah.
And so he's up and he's giving it, going around the dressing, we're sitting, you know, yeah, we're going, Spike's finished, all right, but, you know, 500 goals.
It's going to happen like last weekend.
In your head, you're thinking to yourself, yeah, he's right, you know, Spike's fucking, Winky's grey, he's done, and old Billy, old Noel at the back, yeah. And then the fat lad in the middle of the park, and he was chatting about Kenny Irons. Yeah, what's his name? So somebody goes to pipe in Kenny Irons, and no, don't tell me. Yeah, fat lad, middle of the park, English lad, yeah. What's his name? Oh yeah, remember. Hey, played for Tranmere for 10 fucking years, Kenny fucking Irons. Yeah, got a fucking testimonial and everything.
Do you start pissing yourselves laughing?
We're pissing ourselves. And
that's cracking.
If anybody's going past the dressing room, it's just like a comedy club at this thing. We're 1 minute we're sitting on the edge of our seat and we're champing at the button. Next thing we're in stitches. Yeah. Fucking Kenny Irons. Unbelievable. Well, unbelievable.
You don't strike me as a man that would, like, even though he wasn't involved, he wasn't in that, you know, sort of goldfish environment that you say that you're stuck in the city, like, you know, once you finish a game for Linfield or whatever it was. Like, you seem to, you know, you would strike me as somebody, he's heading down the road, but he's fucking carrying it down the road. and if it went bad for him, he's reliving it Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, maybe until he can do something about it back in training. Was that the type of character you were?
It's only recently now looking back at I always say to people I was too serious.
Yeah.
I would have enjoyed 5 o'clock. You enjoy it, and you're driving down the roads, and the game's going through your head driving home, and then you don't. I'm sure we're all the same. You go to bed after a game, you don't sleep.
No.
You might get 2 or 3 hours sleep, but the game's going through your head. But the focus then will turn straight away to the next game.
Yeah. And
the preparation and the opponents and who, and it's. I think looking back, I just think at times it was way too serious, way too, just
took over your life a wee bit.
I did, absolutely. 100%.
You think you probably didn't enjoy it as much as you should have? Like the good days, you should have enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed it, but I just think that it was total football. It was nothing else. It was just,
Maybe that's why you had the success that you had, though.
Well, I'd like to think it helped. Like we looked forward to the nights out that we had, but that when you look at the nights out, you realised how good they were. The nights out were brilliant, but that was probably coming from weeks of intensity where you're flat out training and preparing, and everything was geared towards getting 3 points on a Tuesday or a Saturday. And it's not a bad thing, but you have to have ways that you can relax as well.
Yeah. What about Harps? You went back to Harps, obviously, about 15 years after you left them. How did you join that?
I went back in 2004, the year we won the first division. And listen, Mark, it's no secret. The reason I'm back to Fun Harps was Felix was there. I wouldn't have signed for anybody else. I was at Coleraine. Had 2 good years there. We won an Irish Cup. We lost an Irish Cup final. There was money problems at Coleraine that time, and I was owed a few pounds, and as was other players. And I got an option to get out with Felix, and I took it. And I said recently, probably, and it's again, no disrespect to Finn Harps or Felix, I felt I probably should have stayed at Coleraine. I felt I probably owed Coleraine, even though I was owed money. The people that were there, I probably owed them a bit more than what I gave them. I jumped ship purely because I was owed money and I didn't see any chance of getting it. And Felix gave me an opportunity to go and play under him again, which was, as I said, they probably wouldn't have signed for Finn Harps for any other manager. And I enjoyed it, I have to say. I enjoyed playing for him again. Sorry, Mark?
He's had a good side. Obviously, he's won the first.
And he always says that we wouldn't have won that league if it wasn't for me and Mickey Funston and Chris Breen. But there was other good players there as well. You had, Luca was there, Shane Bradley, Declan Boyle, Tom Mohan, McGranan, McHugh, Minnock. You had good players there. And obviously the year we won the league, James was in goals, James Gallagher.
That's fine.
And Gavin Cowan. Gavin was injured the year won the first division, but James was in goals.
I'm putting you on the spot here now. Did you agree with what Felix said about? Well, obviously he named you and John Gerard McGettigan as being, one or a couple of 15 or 20 that he says are top players. Did you agree with what he said about? Oh, of course, But what about, obviously, he made some, he made some
he made good points. I felt for I would have went and watched Finn Harps before I signed them at that time. So you're watching them on and off for 15 years. You would have had the opinion that there were players there too long. And probably should have tried to go somewhere else, and like Barry Patton left Van Harps and went to Oma and went to Ballymena and was successful, you know, and maybe some players were just too comfortable there. You know, so I know there was at that, maybe some people looking at him were saying, well, if, you know, Shane Bradley leaves Van Harps, where's he going to go? But sure, Shane Bradley was a good player. You know, and you know as well, Mark, how good he was when he came and played for us at 39 years old. But like Shane Bradley, you know, maybe players just became too. I'm only using him as an example. You know, maybe he was just, you know, looked upon as a Van Harps player, and but I always felt as a player, like every time I, you know, always wanted to move to better myself, you know, and I thought maybe some players were there maybe too long. You know, Felix says that there were so many players, they were only first division players. Well, unless you try and play in the Premier Division, you can't prove otherwise. Like, you know, if you've only played in the first division, you're a first division player. It's not to say you can't play in the Premier League, but, you know, you have to.
But I remember as a young fella going up to Finn Park, and like that time Harps got to the cup final and stuff. They were a Premier Division club then, and Mano and McGranahan were top players. Like, and I was
McGranahan, Paddy McGranahan probably, like he's well thought of as Finn Harps, but Paddy McGranahan could have played at a higher level, Mark. You know, easy going fella, you know, very easy going, but. Like I remember playing with Paddy, and you just under pressure, give him the ball, you know, and he could carry it, and you know, take it into the opposition half, allow you to get up. You know, it unbelievable ability, Paddy McGranahan.
Yeah.
But
he's probably an example of someone who probably should have maybe tested himself, or maybe a bit more ambition.
I think maybe that was probably Felix's point. You know, they were only, like he said that, you know, you correct me if I'm wrong, that they were only good first division players. But, you know, I would like to see them players like some McGranahan, Bradley, maybe go and try and, like Mano went to Shelburne for a year.
Yeah.
You know, I would like to see Mano stay longer there. You know, rather than, you know, come back to Van Harps after one season. Like Kevin McHugh went to Derry. Had a spell at Linfield as well, you know. So very few of them boys that Felix was on about have actually gone and tried to, you know, test themselves at other clubs. So Felix had a point. I know where he's coming from.
I wanted to ask you as well, Anthony, just as we're on the topic of Harps, you went into management, obviously. Now, me and Keith have said in this podcast before, the best coach that I've worked under, like genuinely, not just saying that because you're on the screen here. And look, I've been fortunate enough to have worked under some good coaches as well when I was in Scotland and that. But your coaching's unbelievable. Now, I obviously didn't work under you as a manager. I'm just going to make an assumption here. Like management just is something. I know you manage the youth team and that. In terms of senior, is that something you had an experience at Harps and then that wasn't for you, or what's your opinion on it?
See, to be honest, the timing of the Van Harps job, it was all wrong, and you talk about coaching, like I'm more suited to being a coach than being a manager, if truth be told. Like I managed the Van Harps for a season and a half. Truth be told, I probably didn't enjoy it. You know, I just I didn't get an opportunity to coach, to work with, to train the players that you wanted, because, you know, when I went in first, I thought that I could coach the team and have like a general manager that would have signed players and, you know, offered contracts, and it didn't work out like that. Like I didn't, being honest, I didn't enjoy it. You know, I enjoyed when I went back with James Gallagher. Now, the work that James Gallagher put on as a manager was unreal.
Yeah.
You know, totally focused on. He went away and above what a manager should do. And he's out cutting grass.
The training.
Jesus Christ Almighty, watering a pitch.
Yeah.
You know,
the ice bath, see us jumping into the wheelie bands like.
Like me and James Gallagher, we would have met up. Certainly, at least twice a week before training, before matches. Go through sessions, go through games, tactics, set plays, meticulous in preparation, and I think that showed over then on the sessions we were able to put on then in training. See, like, and the players we had, they were good trainers. Like, that was the sort of group of players that you liked working with and wanted to improve, and a good age of players as well. You know, there were a lot of young lads that were. Like, what age you, Mark? About 23 then?
Yeah. 22, 23, yeah.
Yeah. You know, and that age group and you could see ambition and drive, and that was a happy time, really, that period at that club, with that wee season and a bit, where it was just, like, I think if he had been given a bit longer, because that season that he got sacked was probably the best football we were playing for ages. Like,
we said that, we kind of hoped that would have maybe lasted, you know, he's given a bit more time, because it felt like a good mix, as you said. The age groups seemed right, and it just, you had that youth and experience. Like,
I think if he hadn't been given that time, you know, it was just I think he was just so close. Like,
Gorman played in a cup final for Rovers the first time I was there, and he was 42, and you absolutely ran the show. I'd say it was your last game probably of competitive football. We beat Drumkeen in the cup final 5-3 out in the Dry Arch, and it was kind of embarrassing really for the rest of us lads, to be honest, because he was 42 and he was, honestly, Chief, you were unbelievable. But I remember Liam O'Donnell, Keju, we're in the central after, and we're obviously delighted we won the cup, and I go to Liam, I was like, Gorman's 42. Like, I was like, he's 42, like, and he ran the show. Aye, 42. Can you imagine what he was like when he was 22? Huh?
I wanted to ask the question, the Wraith Rovers, I know it's going way back to where we are now, but just ask the question, when that one didn't materialise, did you think that was your last opportunity to go across the water, essentially, or a move to a big club?
I had a few setbacks previous to Wraith Rovers where you basically had deals done, and for, like, I had an opportunity to go to West Ham when I just signed for Harps in 1989,
right?
And I'd only played about four games at the end of the season, and I got asked to go to West Ham. I'd done well in the 4 games. I got asked to go to West Ham. And I remember I went over on a Saturday and I played a game on a Sunday morning against an England youth team. And we won the game 2-0, and I scored a goal. And on the way back to the airport, there was a man sat in the back of a car called Eddie Bailey, and he offered me a contract. And the contract, I was getting offered £270 a week, and accommodation paid for. And I was going to sign there and then, couldn't wait. And the following Sunday, John Lyle was the manager. West Ham got relegated. John Lyle got sacked, and that was the end of it.
Jeez.
So you go from that, and then I could have
Norwich. You had a chance to go to Norwich, didn't
you? Norwich was after Wraith Rovers, where the two chairmen actually agreed a fee. Robert Chase was the chairman of Norwich, and Hugh Wade was the chairman of Coleraine, and they agreed a fee of £100,000. And Martin Leal had just taken over at Norwich, and because he hadn't done the deal, he scuppered it then. He spoke to me after in the Hilton Hotel in Temple Patrick, and I trained him, I played a game with him, and he says, "You've done really well." He says, "Unfortunately for you, I'm the person who makes the decisions here, not the chairman." He says, "Before we do anything, I want you to come over, have a look around, see if you like it. Maybe you won't like it, and you go over." And I'm thinking, just let me go. I will like it. But then he resigned. Martin O'Neill resigned a couple of weeks later. He couldn't get on with the chairman.
And so was it he didn't want to sign you because it was the chairman's decision? He was trying to make a stamp or something?
I think if he had been, I think he would have signed me probably, but not on the terms that, not on the fact that the Norwich chairman had done the deal.
Yeah.
He probably wasn't even asked. Robert Chase, the chairman, probably didn't even ask Martin O'Neill, did he want to sign me? He's just gone after the game. He's gone, said that Hugh Wade would give you 100,000. You said Hugh Wade knew I wanted an opportunity, and he, to his credit, he says, "Yeah, that's fine." Like Hugh Wade was one of the ones that would have taken 50,000 of Wraith Rovers, but some of the other ones wanted more. But so every time you think, "Oh, that's it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen," but it didn't happen in that way. But I suppose again, you've got to look and say, well, what's for you won't pass you really. But
you were very close on a number of occasions, like that West Ham, Norwich, and Wraith Rovers. It's unlucky.
It was unfortunately it was, but you don't know, Mark. If that had happened, if it had went to Wraith Rovers at that time, maybe I never played for Linfield, and maybe stuck over in Scotland now.
True.
Working on buses. Working in a shipyard.
I'll see that's it. I know suppose there's a lot of bad luck in there as well, and we always we say it, and a lot of conversations that we've all had about football is so much about luck, and it's about kind of the right guy sees you at the right time, and makes the move possible.
Say the Wraith Rovers came about because Coleraine played a match down in Bangor, and we were absolutely rubbish. We were 3-0 down, and Jimmy Nicholl, I can't remember why he was there, but he came into the second half. He was in Northern Ireland for something. He was managing Wraith Rovers, and he came in, and it was one of them. We were 3-0 down, getting absolutely battered, and it was one of them where I just kept getting the ball and kept getting the ball, and I scored 2 goals, brought back to 3-2. And after the game, he offered Felix 50,000.
Yeah,
it was just, we tell about, obviously people have to be in the right place at the right time, and everything has to fall into line, and 3-0 down, 3-0 down. Some lads were hiding, and
he was there for the first half. He might have left at half time.
He probably would have done, because we were out 3-0 down, so it tells you. But at 3-0, you just sort of.
I'm surprised Felix stayed.